I thought I'd just start by kind of telling you how I got here. I've been in the venture capital business for about 30 years, and it's been an extraordinary voyage because I had the benefit of being able to ride this amazing wave of internet and how the internet transformed communications and information, gaming, entertainment, media. It changed a whole bunch of different industries, and I got to be a part of all of that. I got to back some of the really most extraordinary companies in the world, from Europe, Skype, Baidu, Tesla. Oh, the lights went off. I can see you guys. This is terrific. But you are even luckier. I mean, I felt like I was incredibly lucky because I got to ride that incredible wave. But you are even luckier because there is a new technology that is completely transforming the world, and you get to be a part of all that change, all those extraordinary changes that are going to happen. And let me tell you how I got there. And that technology is sort of a combination of Bitcoin, blockchain, smart contracts, and artificial intelligence. Let me tell you how I got to that thinking. There was this Korean guy, and he came to me, and he said, you know, gosh, about 40% of Korea is playing this game. I think it was called Legend or something. And it was a massively multiplayer game. And this was like in 2003 or 2004. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. And then he said, and it's so important to us that I have hired a guy to be my avatar when I go to work every day, so that I can play during the day and then I can pick up where he left off and I can play all night. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And I started to think, wow, they're kind of living in this virtual world. And then he said, I bought my son a sword for his birthday. And I thought it was a non sequitur. I thought it didn't make any sense. What do you mean? He said, yeah, I paid $40. I still didn't understand what he meant. And then he said, no, this is a virtual sword. It is pixels on the screen. And my son wanted that for his birthday, and I'm paying $40 for it. And right there, I started to think, wow, okay, so people are paying fiat money for virtual goods. And then I thought, and people are living in this virtual society, and so they're going to have a virtual life. They're going to have a life there. And that means that there's going to be virtual currency. And so I was watching and waiting, and I kept thinking, and I saw virtual currency in various games, and I thought that was interesting, but nobody connected them. Like from one virtual game to another, there was never a translation. And then there was Bitcoin. And when I saw Bitcoin, I was just jumping. I was saying, this is so great. This is really amazing. People are going to have this virtual currency. And I thought, this is going to be really fun. So I invested in one of the first Bitcoin companies. And I also went to this guy, Peter Vicent, and I said, here, and take $250,000 and go buy me some of that Bitcoin. And he said, okay, I'll buy you some, but I'm gonna instead take your money, and we're gonna go build an ASIC, and we're gonna mine for this currency. And so he went and he did that. And I thought, okay, well, great. And then a couple of things happened. The chip just wasn't getting delivered, and I didn't quite understand what was going on. I said, come on, get this chip out, because Bitcoin keeps moving up. And he said, I know. Well, apparently, Butterfly Labs, the people who were making the chip, went and used the chip in front of him to go mine Bitcoin for a long time before they were willing to deliver it to him, even though he paid for it to be delivered to him. So they sort of front ran him. And then we did get some Bitcoin out of it, and he stored it in the place that was probably the safest place. It was an exchange called Mt. Gox. And Mt. Gox was this, this wonderful place. It was the biggest exchange of Bitcoin, and I thought, okay, well, then we're in good shape. So Mt. Gox then, of course, disappeared the money. I don't know, it disappeared. They stole it or something. And so suddenly we were left with pretty much very little. And I thought, oh, too bad. That's the end. I thought, oh boy, well, this is ridiculous. What a fun little adventure, but I've lost my money and this is the end. And Bitcoin, I thought Bitcoin would just disappear. It went from, I don't know what the price was, 36 down to 33 or something like that on that news. And I thought, whoa, it dropped 10% on that news? I thought it'd be gone. But it only dropped 10%. And I thought, whoa, people really need this. They don't even care if 40% of the market just stole the money. They really need this. So I went on a sojourn looking around the world to try to figure out how people were using Bitcoin. And it turned out that one guy came, my son was very into Bitcoin at the time, and he started Boost, this accelerator for Bitcoin and blockchain companies. And one of the people that came to Boost was from Argentina. And he said, oh yes, I'm from Argentina, and my family in Argentina has lost their fortune 3 times in my life, and I'm only 30 years old. And he said, Bitcoin, I don't care how volatile it is, this is my savior. And so he built a business around that, and then ultimately he created one of the great coins. It's top 20 coin in the world. And so that was one window I had. And then another window I had was in Africa, where people were starting to use Bitcoin to trade things. And I was saying, well, why are you using this? Well, we can't use the banks. We're the unbanked. And I kind of dug in a little bit more, and I realized that if you wanted to go open a bank account now and you had 25 euros, the bank would push you away. They don't want that business because it costs them 200 euros a year just to comply with all the regulations a bank has to comply with. So now you've got this really interesting alternative that's creating a whole new economy, a whole new societal economy that wasn't being served by the existing government business banking structure, but is very viable and could really kind of change things. So I got very interested in Bitcoin. And when there was an auction, the Silk Road auction came up, all my friends were bidding on it, and they all bid below market because they thought, wow, that we get a quantity discount on Bitcoin here. I bid above market, stupid as I am, but I got all the Silk Road Bitcoin, at least that first auction's worth. And then it was at 632 when I bought it, and it slid all the way down to about 180. But when it was about 230, I said, in 3 years, Bitcoin's going to be worth $10,000. It's kind of weird because to the day, on that day, it hit $10,000. And weirdly, I was in Argentina on the day it hit $10,000. So it's kind of a fun thing. And so I got very involved. I was excited about Bitcoin. I was excited about all the things happening around Bitcoin. I started to dig into the blockchain and what it could be. Blockchain is this perfect ledger, keeps perfect track of data. And then I learned about smart contracts, and these are contracts where you set it all up in software, and whatever you tell the software to do, it does. When an event happens, it happens. So if you need to distribute dividends or royalty checks or whatever, it can all be done in a smart contract. And then I studied some artificial intelligence too, because I started to think that that was an interesting place where people were going to go, where the computers start finding out things with deep learning, they call it deep learning, that humans haven't really, that are non-obvious to humans. So suddenly they find out that when people go out to buy diapers, they're also buying beer. So that's kind of, and a computer figures that out, but humans aren't thinking that that happens, except for the guy who gets sent out to buy the diapers, and he picks up his 6-pack of beer. So now I'm sitting there with this Bitcoin, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really interesting. And there are all sorts of things that start to happen. There are the Bitcoin copycats, and then there are all these new technologies that are coming out, and these ICOs. And so I backed a couple of the ICOs, and they ended up being incredibly, explosively successful. So now, like we thought they may raise like $3 million, and they raised $240 million. Like Tezos raised $240 million on this very unusual and strange environment. So now this is all about government, so we're going to get to that. All of a sudden, a couple of things are happening. Cryptocurrencies are not just for the virtual world. They can be for your world. So suddenly, this is impinging on the fiat governments that have been able to sort of, in effect, control all of you with their currency. They are able to say where how much currency is allowed out there, and they're able to say where their currency is able to be spent and how their currency is best used. And with that currency, they do hold a lot of power. So suddenly there's this decentralized, frictionless, global currency. Okay, so geographic borders are now falling, and there's this currency that spreads around the world. And that combined with new, with a blockchain, starts telling you that, okay, well, let's go into this. What does a government do? Okay, there are the terrestrial-based services. There's the police and the fire and where you can put a building. But then there's this whole other part of government, and that's where the money goes, where the data goes, how people are treated, all of that. That can all be done virtually. So you think about it, if you have Bitcoin and you have a blockchain and you have a smart contract and you have artificial intelligence, you have the perfect bureaucrat. You have somebody who is fair and honest and completely distributed and in effect can treat everyone exactly the same. And that's an incredibly powerful thing. I got excited because there are all these industries that are going to be affected by Bitcoin blockchain. Because I'll just give you one example. In medicine, you're going to be able to take control of your own data. You're going to put it on the blockchain, and that data is going to be, say, not just your medical history, but your genetic history and your blood test results for the last 10 years and the next 20 years, and your Fitbit results, and what you ate for breakfast, and how far you walked the day before, and who you've been hanging out with, and where you've been, and all of that is in your data. Well, suddenly you now have all sorts of new data from which you can grab if you're sick. You get a sore throat. Well, what caused that? And the computer can sort of figure it all out and say, oh, well, you were in Jamaica, you probably got it on the way here, and it's probably no big deal. Or if I get a sore throat, they say, get him on the stretcher because who knows why. They just say, and so different people can be treated differently in this new world in medicine, and it kind of opens things up. So if you're a drug company and you've been sending the same pill to everyone, you're going to have to rethink your business. Okay, so that's one thing. It's going to change real estate, insurance. It's going to change a ton of huge, huge industries. But and as a venture capitalist, I'm always looking for the industries where they're providing the worst service at the highest cost. And so it's interesting that all of those, healthcare, insurance, real estate, are all providing bad service at a high cost. Also banking and venture capital. I have to be admitting that as venture capitalists, we are providing bad service at a high cost. But now these new technologies are going to transform all that. It's going to make, time's up, I'm almost there. It's going to make our world a very different place. And governments who provide the worst service at the highest cost are going to be the big opportunity here. And I'm very excited about this conference because these are entrepreneurs in some ways taking technology and applying it to governance. And I believe that that there are going to be two forms of governments. There's going to be the terrestrial part and the virtual part. And the virtual part will cross borders. The virtual part will go, I'm the third virtual resident of Estonia. Estonia has recognized that there's a virtual part of governance that doesn't have to be tied to any land mass. All these other countries are starting to feel the same way. They're all starting to think in terms of how they can compete for you, how they can improve their virtual governance for you. And these governments are going to have to provide, I mean, look, you can have your health care insurance and your pension and your safety net and whatever all on the blockchain. And you don't need to be in the landmass that is providing your virtual governance. And so governments have to reinvent themselves. They have to think in terms of changing the way they think, that instead of being a monopoly where I control everything that I purvey, being an entrepreneur and thinking in terms of how do I get more virtual citizens into my governance, and how do I perform better than these other virtual governments on attracting people like you. So with that, I'm just trying to kind of open up your brains for the rest of the conference, and that was my goal.